Hello and welcome to Career Talk. I'm Lee Hopwood, CEO at the CCMA and host of this live show where I chat with contact centre professionals to find out about their career journeys to date. So the reason we do this is because we want to inspire those that are working in the industry and also those that are thinking about having a career in the contact centre industry. And, do you know what? There are so many careers available in this sector. And through all of the conversations that I've had with the contact centre leaders and contact centre people that are in the earlier stages of their careers, it's amazing what options are open. And today I am joined by Kelly Shippen, Head of Contact Centre at Leeds Building Society. Hello, Kelly.
Hello. Nice to see you and nice to be here.
Good to see you. And I feel like we are very much in support of Ukraine today with your yellow background, which I know is the brand from Leeds, and obviously with my blue background, which obviously is CCMA brand.
Perfectly matched.
Perfectly matched. Now, Kelly, I came to see you last year when I was doing one of my little tours of the UK, and you're located in Newcastle, not in Leeds. You're on a business park where there's loads of contact centres, and it was fabulous driving around the business park to come and see you and seeing so many of our members. What's the community like on that business park? Surely it's a little bit competitive for that best talent.
So I think that there's a couple of things. I think from a community point of view, the Cobalt management team, so we have a group of people that are dedicated to building community, and whether that is having cycle days where you can have bikes maintained, organising what they call Tasty Thursday, working with local schools, charities and all of those things. So actually there's loads of opportunity for businesses to come together and colleagues to come together and do those things without any kind of competition about who does what. But I think actually, although there are a lot of contact centres, I think we're all quite different. So actually, the people that might want to come and work in my contact centre probably are different, with different skills and different backgrounds to the likes of EE or Sage, where actually their environments are really different and unique, and I think actually quite nice. We all have different needs and therefore attract different people. But we work together, strangely enough. So actually we together ran an apprentice, like a World of Work week last year. And they went from us to EE, to Sage and across the different businesses. So actually, there's quite a good community spirit considering the position.
I love hearing that, and it's one of the things I love about our industry is that community, that community feel, and we're all in this together. We're all in this for the purpose of supporting customers and having great working environments. And what I also really love about that, and I love the fact that we started with this, is if anybody's looking for a career in this sector, just how different contact centres are. Both from the conversations that they might have with customers, the different environments, the different skills that are required. It really is quite a diverse industry.
Absolutely. And I think no matter what your background, if you like to talk to people, there's a one to suit you, but we are different. And it's really important to, actually find out a little bit more about those companies and what they do, find something that you've maybe got a passion into.
Yeah, I love that. So you've been at Leeds Building Society for 15 years. Now, that's a long time to be in one organisation. So tell me about what you do now as head of contact centre. And then I want to go back further beyond the last 15 years, back to where it all started. So what do you do now? What does that mean, being head of contact centre?
So for me, it's about making sure as a mutual organisation, we are here for our members. We don't have any shareholders or anything like that. So everybody who works here is incredibly passionate about providing the best possible service they can for customers. So my job is making sure we're there when customers need us, there when they want us, and we offer something really personal, something different. If we're all just competing against interest rates, well, customers will move around every few moments. I think for me, creating an environment where colleagues can be really personal, offer a really personal service is probably, where I start. But beyond that, actually, I don't think very many contact centres succeed when they work alone or work in silo. So my job is also about making sure we look after customers, we deliver our targets, we look after the people that work in contact centre, but actually I manage the relationships across the business. We've all been through a strange couple of years, and we at the beginning of COVID set up what we called our virtual contact centre. So I work with our head of branch network, and we utilised what was acquired High Street to serve as contact centre customers. And we've worked together really hard from that point to find ways of working together and enriching roles and utilising resources and bringing that together. And I think that's probably a great example of what my job is across the business as well. People understanding no matter where you work, no matter what you do, it's likely going to impact customers and it's going to potentially create a call driver. So that education and awareness and engagement is a huge part of what I do.
What do you enjoy most about what you do at the moment?
I absolutely love the team that I'm lucky enough to work with and to hear the stories of them building friendships and relationships with customers and seeing the passion they have and the ideas they come up with and the things they want to change. I'm so lucky to look at a group of people and think, do you know what, they care as much as I care. And you don't always get that, and I'm really, really lucky, and I love that part of what I do.
I love that. And you mentioned there that they come up with ideas. Now we talk a lot about listen to your employees, listen to your frontline colleagues. They're the ones that are listening to the customers. They're the ones that are going to have loads of ideas of how you can make things better for the customer. And that's clearly something you champion, getting those ideas and being able to make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a local programme, we have transformation teams that sit centrally and they support us, but actually we run local programmes, which we call plain sailing. How do we make things, run smoothly for a customer and for colleagues as well? So those ideas are on two sides, what makes it easier for us so that we can make it easier for customers, and the opposite, and we get lots of ideas. And we're working to try and help people think through those ideas, see them through. If it was your idea, let's make sure you're part of the testing and the implementation so you can see, all of those things. And we've had some colleagues come to sessions, they've had an idea and they've sat in a workshop and gone, oh my goodness, I never imagined it was this difficult. I had a really simple idea, but the complexities that we've got to go through. And it's quite inspiring for them to be able to come up with more ideas, but really helpful for them to understand what goes on.
And interestingly, I bet there's the opposite of that, where someone goes, "Oh, we'll never do this because it's just too difficult," and actually it turns out to be we just made this change and look at the impact.
Absolutely. I was just laughing last week. Actually, we had a colleague. We put a change in recently to allow some automated statement requests, and one of the colleagues said, "So does that then just drop into one of the support teams, and then do they process that?" And I said, no, it goes straight into the RPA process, and the robot does it, and then it just goes straight out. And they were just like, "Wow, I just didn't even think that was possible." And you're right. It's just those things that are moving that people don't think are possible, but as we move, everything's becoming more and more accessible now.
I love that. I really love that actually it doesn't matter where you are in the contact center, you can have a real impact in whatever it is that you're doing. I love that. So let's go back. School, university, where did it start? What was your first job? Take us back to the beginning.
So I left school at 16 and started what was called then a YTS, which is now today's apprenticeship. So that is where my career started. That wasn't particularly supported by my teachers. And I remember quite vividly one teacher saying to me, "You'll regret this and it'll be the biggest mistake of your life. You need to stay in school and you need to do this and you need to do that." But I thought, well, I can give it a try. And if it doesn't work out, I'll go back to college and university. Can't necessarily go the other way. So at 16, I joined what was Northern Rock, now Virgin Money, and went in as an apprenticeship. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Somebody said to me, "Oh, I could see you sitting behind a cash desk and giving money out one day." And the opportunity came up to join the organisation, and it was brilliant because it was a great apprenticeship programme. They gave you the opportunity to go into different areas, learn different things. They had a group of people, none of us knew what we wanted to do. So I went to financial crime first, which was interesting. And then I joined the telephone sales area where they were generating leads for branches, and I'd fax everything out to the branches, all those good jobs. But that was it. Once I got in there, I started to learn what I was good at, maybe what I wasn't so good at, and realised, I love to talk. And that was the beginning, really. I went onto the phones and learned life skills. I learned things that have helped me from that day on, build friendships that have lasted all these years as well. And it was really the beginning of everything. I continued to study. I became a mortgage advisor, and then really took the first step into a team leader position. When I was 18, I became a team leader, and from there I did everything. And I think that is what contact centres are just great at. I was involved in regulatory projects, implementing mortgage advice changes. I became the coaching manager. I was L&D manager for a number of years. And then I went into manage the contact centre itself, and equally still had lots of opportunity to get involved in projects, new business channels, third-party relationships. And by 27, I was an assistant director. And so the opportunities that were made available to me, and the people that really inspired me and supported me along that way, really helped me to achieve that. When I look back at what was still quite a young age, I worked with younger people, older people, men, women, everybody. And I learned something from every single one of them along the way.
That is really, really fascinating. So you said there that those opportunities came your way. How did they come your way? And there must have been something that you were doing or behaviours you were displaying that either meant they came your way or you were on a mission.
I think, do you know what? I think you go into something, and I have a passion to do the best I can do. And I think people do see that. They see that in everyone. I see it now. I work with people, and you see that they have a desire. They want to do the best, whether they're career driven or not. They want to deliver the best they can deliver. And I also think people then, it's people spotting what you're strong at and helping to just shape your thinking. I took opportunities. I was managing a team of people, and there was an opportunity to be an induction trainer. And, a few people said, would you not think that's maybe a bit of a, is it a side step or is it a back step? And I said, you know what, it's just something new and it's something different. And I'm going to come out of this learning. And I learned that I couldn't work in a role where I wasn't with managing people. I loved it. And I love that. And I think you've just got to take the opportunities, even if sometimes they don't feel like they're a step in the direction you were thinking of, because actually they just make you a much, much stronger and rounded manager, far more capable of what comes your way further down the line.
And it's interesting that you talked about being L&D, you've talked about quality, you talked about different roles that you took. And like you say, there might not have been an upward step, there might have been sideways, maybe occasionally felt like a backward step. But I hear time and time again that the contact centre leaders that I'm talking to have had experience in different aspects of the contact centre. It's another reason why I love contact centres. There's so many different things going on. Do you think that that's really important for leaders of today to have those different experiences?
I do, because if I think about each of the different roles that I did, take the learning and development role, I learned about learning styles. I learned about some of the theory that you need to be able to think about when you're communicating things or you're engaging colleagues. Actually, everybody's different. How you coach and get the best out of people. And I think as a manager, you've got to be able to do that. But if you don't go through that process, or you don't go through a really strong training program. You know, I talk to my team a lot about you're missing some of those foundation blocks, and you'll get so far, but then things will start to wobble and it'll start to come down. And I think, you know, regulatory projects, that understanding for risk, you know, and the caution and the steps you take and the mitigating actions you put in place, I think have all just served me really well to make sure that, you know, I can do the job that I'm expected to do. And I think I would say the same to anybody. If you get the opportunity, think of how you're rounding those skills and take the opportunities.
That's really fascinating. Now, you talked about you learned quite early on what you were good at and what you were not so good at. And reflecting back in those early days, what did you recognize that actually you were really good at? And also, it'd be really interesting to hear what you felt at that time you felt you weren't so good at.
Yeah, so I think I remember I was an advisor in one of the teams, and we'd been given a problem. So our team manager had got us together and we had to fix a problem. I'll come up with some recommendations for change. And, you know, somebody's writing on, oh, you know, somebody write on the board. So I'm upright scribbling on the board. And then it got to the end and they said, okay, who's going to present back? You know, and I was still quite young and inexperienced. So I wasn't particularly confident at putting myself forward. And the team manager said, will you walk through it all? And I said, I'll give it a try. So in come our head of department at the time and things. It was quite nerve-wracking. And I went through it all, and afterwards, you know, they said that my manager came and just said, I can't believe how well you did. You would, and I think, you know, you just need that reassurance. Sometimes you can't. I think forget that some people, depending on their background and depending on their experience, things that others find quite simple, others don't, and they don't know their areas they're good at. You've got to tell people the things they've done really well, the things that they've done well, because they might not realise it themselves. And I think I found, you know, communicating with teams, relating to people, all became things that I was better off than I ever realised I was. I could go into environments and talk and engage, and you might have felt really nervous, and you know, my legs still to this day will have a little bit of a wobble if I've got to go and stand on a stage and present. But you start to realise actually you come across more confident than you might be feeling on the inside. The things that I learned that I didn't want, you know, weren't my strong points. I wasn't an analyst. You know, I worked for a little bit in like a bit of an MI team, definitely not my thing. You know, being, you know, heavily involved in the technical setup of systems, you know, I don't mind from an outside point of view, but you think, do you know what, where are my strengths? You can't be great at everything. And I think recognising that's really important, because then it helps you, you know, to take your career down an avenue that actually you enjoy and you're good at.
It's interesting. I think you're right. It's when you're good at something, you're more likely to enjoy it. That's not always the case, but if you get a good feeling when you're doing something, or if someone's made you feel good and you feel satisfied with what that task was, what that, you know, getting on a stage and presenting to lots of people, you know, I still get the jitters when I do that, and you know, do the count to 10 is going to be fine, and it is scary, but you're right. It's having the confidence to push yourself out of the comfort zone as well, I guess.
Absolutely.
Interesting. So you then, therefore, associate director at Northern Rock. What happened next?
So I suppose Northern Rock went through a bit of a sticky time, and I moved on. You know, I never thought I would, but I did. I made the step and I joined Leeds. Leeds were looking to utilise a small site they had in the northeast from a past merger and grow the office in the northeast. I think I went from having about 150 people to having 8. And I sat and I say to this day, managing small teams is a lot harder than managing big teams. Really, really tough. But we
why? I have to come back to that. Why is managing a small team harder than managing a big team?
Because you have so little flexibility. Do you know, you want to do things, but when you've only got a small team and you've got customers to serve, you don't have this. When there's hundreds of people, it brings different challenges, really different challenges. But actually, you've got more flexibility. You've got a little bit more movement. You know, and even if you want to do things out of hours, you've got more people to ask. The smaller that area is, the more difficult that is. And sometimes you need them to do a certain skill, and they don't always come with all of the skills. So we grew, we worked really hard, and we grew what was the mortgage advice team, and really established that in the Northeast, and a skill set, and it is still here. And it's still in the Northeast. We've moved now. We're in a much, much bigger office. And over that time, I suppose I've gone from, the direct mortgages. I've looked after complaints, the broker telephone team, setting up our vulnerable customer team, to the main contact centre, which is what I'm looking after at the moment. But being at Leeds has given me huge variety too. I've been able, again, back to, you might go, well, are they not just the same? No, they're fundamentally different. And it requires you to, really think. And it's like a whole new challenge. People who love a challenge and like to get their teeth into something, there's always something different going on in a contact centre. It never, ever feels the same.
And so you've been at Leeds for 15 years, and that must be I'm going to say that must be one of the key reasons why you've stayed in the same organisation, because it's different. There are opportunities there. Tell us a little bit more about some of the opportunities you've had since you've been there.
Yeah, so I think, since I've been involved, I went from working in a big organisation which was contact centre focused, actually, to a smaller organisation where I've worked really closely with lots of other areas, whether it's been the branch network or back office. I've grown new teams from scratch. We've rebuilt teams because the world was moving on. And take complaints as an example. I took on the complaints team, and the world was changing and customers were changing, and we had a lot of work to do. But it required, change of mindset before we even started thinking about processes. The mindset of the team needed to change. We were very much used to writing letters to customers and not picking up the phone and having a conversation with them. Felt a bit scary. So those cultural changes I've been able to be part of across lots of parts of the organisation. And although some of them don't work for me now, I'm able to look at them and see how far they've come and how far they continue to move on. We've been, a big part of the customer experience focus we've had as an organisation, and our aspirations to try and bring some of the Nunwood pillars in, and how we were going to really progress and deliver those things. And I think for me, over the last few years as well, raising the profile of the contact centre. I'd say when I first joined, the team were in Leeds, and we moved them to Newcastle, but they were seen as a switchboard and nothing more. And they had that mindset because that's how they were looked upon. They also had that mindset, and the difference between then and now is just more than you could imagine. So I've been lucky enough to be part of that. And then we've had COVID in between all of that, and I've had 2 children in between all of that. So it's been a varied 15 years.
So can I just explore the fact that you have been a working mum? Because I know that there will be people that will be listening that will be going, how do you do that? How do you achieve what you've just talked about and be a working mum? How was that for you? How did you manage that?
So I think it's probably one of my biggest achievement over the 15 years is, holding on to my mind and a husband and 2 children. I think you have to make some difficult decisions. And I think if you're always thinking, as a manager, when you progress, you've got to keep focused on your own balance, your own mindset, and what's important to you, what your priorities are. And I think as long as you do that, you make decisions, and sometimes the hard decisions, they might be not to progress at a particular point in time, or, just to ease back a little bit. But, my husband and I, we sat down and made a decision. He was going to go part-time, and I was going to stay part-time, full-time. And we have developed that balance over these years. And that doesn't mean I don't get to do things. I've got a great, work-life balance where I am, but we all know working in contact centres full-time is full-time. And it's a busy old world, but it's about, developing good managers, great teams around you that can support you through that time. but keeping the perspective right, just keeping that balance of what's important in life and not letting it overwhelm you too much. I think when you can be disciplined in that, it serves you really, really well.
I love that, and it is hard when you're a working mum, and I'm sure through what you've just described and how you managed it, one, brilliant having a supportive partner with you, helping you to achieve what you want to achieve. But I'm sure there were some difficult decisions that you had to take. I'm sure there were, because you're right, full time in the contact centre, full on in the contact centre, absolutely, and I'm not surprised. That's therefore one of your greatest achievements. So, who has inspired you along the way? I mean, it sounds like you've been in touch with lots of people. You've seen people grow in the teams that you've been in, but who has inspired you along the way?
I think there's probably been a couple of people that stand out. So very early in my career, we had a gentleman at the company I worked for who was really senior, he progressed, and he was one of our executive members board, and I was a team manager. And I observed him. He would walk around the business and he would talk to people and he would relate to them, not as this kind of really senior person, but as somebody who you could just relate to. And watched from afar, and then actually, I had an encounter with him, and he knew who I was, and he knew what I did, and he asked me questions, and he was really positive about what I'd achieved, and I was just overwhelmed that despite all the hundreds of people, he clearly knew, a lot about a lot of people, and he made it really personal. And although there might have been some things he was guessing at, it didn't feel like that to me. And I think that really inspired me to try to be the manager that I still try to be today, and that actually knowing people and relating to people and being able to have a conversation with them about anything and everything, and that they feel valued. I left that conversation feeling valued, and I tried to do the same with the people that I come into contact with as well. And the second person was much more recent, actually. It was probably maybe about 5 years ago, and I had a new boss, and he was very different to me. He was a laid back, he wasn't always, he didn't always turn up on time. And I thought that was like the end of the world. For me, these standards and all of these things had become really important. And I think as a manager, you have to adjust your style to who you're working for. And I think I learned that a long time ago, making those adjustments and finding a new rhythm to work with whoever you work for is really important. So, after the first few months, and I just really couldn't get my head around this really different style. But we talked and we worked. And, I'm sure it won't mind me for saying this, but he's older than me, a few years older than me. And I realised I was the old-fashioned one. And he really taught me that I had become maybe just, these standards that I'd maybe had from years ago, I was holding on to too much. And don't get me wrong, being late for meetings, I'm not saying that. But actually, there were just different ways and different styles and different ways to think, that it doesn't matter who you work with, it doesn't matter their age, their background, or anything, you can learn. And that really inspired me, I think, as a manager, to think, do you know what, you should always keep refreshing your knowledge, talk to people, learn, and make sure, and don't think your way is always right.
That is fascinating and an incredible story. And I have to ask you, therefore, what is the best advice that you've ever received? Because if that's your mindset of keep it fresh, keep thinking differently, what's the best advice that you've ever had?
I think there's probably, a couple of things, but I think for me, don't ever assume you know what somebody else is going through or what's going on in their life, whether that is a colleague or a customer. Everybody has something different. And I think when you're managing customer experience, knowing that and making sure you ask questions and you listen. And that's the same for colleagues, peers, across the whole business. If you're trying to influence somebody in another area, you can't just impose things. Make sure you ask those questions and learn and understand. And I think that served me well.
Wow. Do you know what? I could talk to you all afternoon. This is so good. I think you just oozing so much advice and inspiration to those in the industry that are looking to progress, looking to grow, looking for opportunities. But before you go, I have to ask you some quick fire questions. What's your favourite breakfast?
Weetabix.
Nice. With what kind of milk?
Sorry, say that again?
With what kind of milk?
Or with milk.
With milk, normal milk. No,
Yes.
You weren't expecting that question, were you? And would you rather fly or have super strength?
Oh, I'm just losing you a little bit, Lee. Sorry, just say that again.
Would you rather fly or have super strength?
I'm just struggling. I think we might be losing it. Maybe that's it. 30 minutes. Enough's enough, Kelly. Off you go.
Do you know what? I am gonna leave it there. I'm not sure if you can hear me. I don't know if anybody else can hear me. But Kelly, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and coming and sharing your career journey so far. I can't wait to see where you go next. And I look forward to catching up with my next guest in a few weeks. And you can watch all of our career talks on the CCMA website, ccma.org.uk. Kelly, for now, thank you so much.
Well, it's been lovely talking to you, Lee, and thank you very much for your time today. And I hope somebody's taken something from it.
Absolutely. Take care. See you all soon.